the legendary voice of the San Francisco 49ers. Greg Papa is on vacation today, driving to his vacation home, and he's kind enough to pick up the phone and answer our questions. How are you, sir?
Well, I'm heading up to Tahoe to do a little skiing, and but today would be the day, Andrew. The events of Sunday night gone just one play differently. We'd be having our Super Bowl parade starting in Santa Clara and all the way through the Bay up 101 and all the way to San Francisco. But I do want to start by sending out from the 49ers organization our deepest condolences, our thoughts and prayers are with the folks of Kansas City after a horrific, senseless, speakless tragedy yesterday that marred a great celebration for them. We can congratulate them on their Super Bowl, and hopefully the citizens of Kansas City will be able to pull through. But that was a rough afternoon to be able to watch that.
Yeah, it was. Greg, how is this story played in the Bay Area?
Well, it's hard. I mean, we lost to them in February of 2020 after the 19 season, and we were going to have a big parade. They were in a 3rd and 15 with 7 minutes and 13 seconds to play in the Super Bowl, and they ran a infamous play, famous play there, infamous here, 2-3 chip jet wasp, the 3rd and 15 to Tyreek, Andrew. And otherwise, I think we win that Super Bowl. But looking back on it, we would have had a huge parade. There may have been 1 million people in San Francisco for that parade to celebrate their first title since '94. And we had a global pandemic hit, right around that time. We were unaware of a killer virus was out there. So maybe in retrospect, it saved a lot of lives. And but what happened yesterday in Kansas City, you have to wonder, are we ever going to be able to have a normal parade and celebration to celebrate our champions, or are we going to have to do it in a stadium where fans go through a metal detector to get in? And if you do it that way, you're not going to be able to have 500,000 or 1 million people. So obviously we're sickened by it. Our thoughts and prayers go out to the folks of Kansas City.
Yeah, absolutely. Well said. And now we turn to the off season, not callously turning to the off season, but there is business to be done here. Free agency is right around the corner. The combine is even closer than that in 2 weeks. Were you surprised? Actually, let me rephrase that. If they had won, would Steve Wilks still be the DC today?
Well, to your first question, I'm not surprised at all. And had they won the game, I think there's a strong chance that Kyle makes a change anyway. There was just a disconnect with Steve from the beginning, and I think it's no fault of Steve's. He's a very impressive human being. When I first met him and did a lengthy, a panel with the season ticket holders in front of thousands of people, he was extremely impressive, cerebral, very much I think a head coaching kind of guy, a CEO. Maybe he's better served to be a head coach than he was as a DC with this particular team. But it's just, you got to understand, Robert Saleh and DeMeco Ryans raised Fred Warner and Dre Greenlaw and Nick Bosa. And it just was more of an internal way of which they did things here. And it was going to be tough. I was a little surprised that Kyle went outside the building to hire Steve. But what he was trying to duplicate, Andrew, was what the Niners did, George Seifert did in the early 90s when Mike Holmgren left to be the coach of the Packers. They brought in Mike Shanahan, Kyle's dad, to tweak that Bill Walsh, Mike Holmgren offense. And Mike lived in a hotel. Kyle and his mom, Peggy, weren't even there for 3-4 months. And he just watched every tape, every ounce of film and all the audio from Coach Walsh and Holmgren, and put his own spin on it. And they had heartbreaks. They lost to the Cowboys. How about them Cowboys game in 92 and 93 in Dallas before they finally got the monkey off their back in 94. So Kyle was looking for that in Steve Wilks. He holed up in a hotel when he moved out, about a year ago at this time. And for whatever reason, there was it just didn't connect. I think a lot of it was they asked Coach Wilks to learn the Niner terminology and calling plays on defense is not like Kyle's 3-paragraph offense. You can call it, a defensive play. Anaheim is their call for a cover 3, which they run a lot. But it was more, Steve, come in and run our defense and make your subtle tweaks. And maybe he would have made more. Had he gotten past this year, he would have made more in year 2. And like Mike Shanahan, been able to figure it all out at some point and win a Super Bowl. But it just didn't work for a lot of different reasons. And I think I felt, halftime of the Lion game and the championship game down 24-7, there's going to be a change made. They came back and won that game, and then I think it's a broader, say you just get Mahomes down on the ground on that 4th and 1. You make one play, you win the Super Bowl. It would have been harder to make a change, but I think there was a disconnect that spoke more than just one game. It wasn't that. So now the question is, what does Kyle do? Does he want to run that? It's not like every single snap is cover 3 defense, but that's basically what they major in, and then they adjust off of that. That's what Saleh ran almost every snap in the early days when we went to the Super Bowl in 19. And then, with D'Amico made a little more changing where you do more, cover 2 on one side, cover 4 on the other, and, mix in 3 and a little more 1. So we'll see if he wants to stay married to that. I think he does, but, if you go outside of the building and you talk to somebody like Mike Vrabel, now are they going to change to a 3-4 defense and ask Nick to buzz out in coverage like the Chargers do Joey Bosa? I don't think they'll do that. So the question is, do you want to go outside the building, which is intriguing because you have some of the greatest defensive coaches available that have been, maybe they're overqualified. You're really going to, get Bill Belichick to take this job, or Pete Carroll, or Mike Vrabel. I think more realistically, Brandon Staley would be someone.
But he's a 3-4 guy.
Yeah, he's a Fangio guy. It's
right.
More of a cover 4. Yeah, so that's up to Kyle and just knowing him and talking to him over the years, I think he does want to continue with the same defense. But he has talked to Fangio in years past about running the defense. So if he does want to bring in a guy who's a disciple of Lord Fangio, Staley would be the guy.
Fascinating. Talking to Greg Papa here, the voice of the 49ers coming off the Super Bowl 58 loss and heading out on vacation. Again, grateful. Thank you, Greg, for doing this. You mentioned Belichick. Obviously, that's been kicked around. That seems farcical, though. He wouldn't. Would Kyle make the call?
You mean as far as if Belichick's on the staff?
Yeah, I've already seen it written. Would Kyle Shanahan pick up the phone and call Bill Belichick and say, "Do you want to be defensive coordinator?" That sounds insane.
They have a relationship. They text back and forth. When Jimmy Garoppolo was traded to the Niners by Belichick, it was Belichick reaching out to Kyle, and obviously John Lynch. They've made other trades and they've talked. So maybe you do it through a intermediary or an agent. You don't want to offend him. But he was a great defensive coordinator. I mean, the 2 greatest games ever coordinated in history is when he beat the Niners in the 1990 championship game and the Leonard Marshall hit on Joe, and then what he did to the Bills in Super Bowl 25 playing nickel the whole game. I mean, he loves defense. That would be up to him. You probably know him a little bit. I mean, does he want to go into TV? Does he want to come in and coach defense for a year? I don't think it'd be insulting to reach out to him, but would he want to do it? If he wanted to do it, hell, go at it. And then the question would be if he's on the staff, Kyle's still the head coach, but Belichick knows the pecking order. I mean, when he was with Parcells, there was a lot of snapping there, going back and forth. He knows how a structure is work. He's respectful of his job. Now, would he want to do it? I'm not going to speak for him, but he could come here and win a Super Bowl. And then also, maybe take some of the Niner offensive coaches with him when he goes to his next stop or players that are going to be available. I'm not going to speak for Coach Belichick. That's up to him. I think Pete Carroll would be more of a natural fit because with Belichick, he likes to vary his fronts. It'd be a very different defense. Not saying he has to run a 3-4 but Bill does vary things, which Kyle may be open to. I mean, I've spoken to Kyle many times about Bill Belichick. He's the best defensive coach of this maybe of all time, certainly of recent years. So he has great respect for him. There's no doubt. It's glowing, and Mike Shanahan does as well. They went at each other a lot, but I think that's just as far as a structure, you'd have to change things, and ultimately, whoever the name is. You want them to get the most out of your players. So what's the best defense to run for Fred and Dre and Nick and Charvarius Ward and Diamondor Lenore and Talanoa Hufanga? That's who you're trying to serve. But Pete Carroll, the defense the Niners are running and has since Kyle's been the head coach.
It's Pete's defense.
Seattle defense.
Yeah.
It's Seattle's. And he's the guy who did it. So he got away from it a little bit the last couple of years. he's from the Bay Area. He used to be a defensive coordinator of the Niners. In fact, when Mike Shanahan left to become the head coach in Denver, I think he moved into Pete Carroll moved to, I don't want to say Mike's house, but then I think the same school district. They all just kind of swapped. And Pete's from here. He's from Marin, Greenberry. And so, I mean, does Pete want to do that, though? He's been coaching as the head coach level for 20 years. He hasn't run a defense since he was with the Niners in the mid-'90s. So I don't know. I mean, Mike Vrabel may still want to be ascending. They do have internal candidates. I think the one people aren't talking about, obviously, Chris Kasarik, the D-line coach, Johnny Holland, the linebacker coach, Daniel Bullock's the secondary coach. But there's a guy on the staff, Nick Sorensen, who was with Pete Carroll in Seattle when they won the championship and they won the Super Bowl 10 years ago. And he did a number of things on that staff, special teams, and then he segued over. He did play DB in the NFL, and he's very instrumental. Just watching him run the defense on, walkthrough Saturdays and scout preparations. He's the one who's really hands-on quite a bit. But he's never, run a defense before. It'd be somewhat of a leap of faith. But at the same time, neither did D'Amico Ryans. He had a good idea he could do it, but D'Amico was a great linebacker and a linebacker coach. So it'll be intriguing to see which way Kyle goes. First of all, do you want to go internal, external, inside the building, outside, and do you want to change the structure of the defense at all, or do you want to stay predominantly being a cover 3-based defense?
And then if it's Pete or Vrabel or Belichick, then I want the cameras in there for Hard Knocks, because that would be must-see TV.
No, we wouldn't have to, wouldn't we? We went to the Super Bowl last year.
I know, but
we don't meet the
requirements. Still just do it.
I know.
Which they wouldn't do it.
Kyle would not like that.
Want to go back to the game. One last thing here before we let you go. And again, thank you for your time here on vacation.
Anything for you, brother.
So I don't know if have you seen the Inside the NFL treatment yet, or can you not watch?
Yeah. I've watched snippets. Honestly, it's painful for me.
Yeah.
I went back and watched the game a little bit, but I've seen the excerpts. Which one do you want to talk about?
Well, let's talk about the 4th and 1 here, because you got Trent Williams on the sideline saying, watch the keeper. It's going to be Pat. He's going to run. And then you see the sideline angle when he does turn the corner, and when Bosa realizes, they blew it, he kind of has his hands out like, what the H, right? And then you have Trent Williams again kind of saying, like, I told you, on the sideline. When you and Tim Ryan are up there in the booth, your great partner, the great T-Rock, what did you see? Did you guys see it coming? How did it unfold?
Well, I mean, there were several plays. That was obviously a big one. But I think the fact that Kelsey let him out in space there, it was really hard to defend that play. Either way, it was a perfect, unless you overload the side he's going to, and he made his check to the other side, it was going to be a difficult, because he had a two-way option. If there was pressure right in his face, then Kelsey just releases the flat. So it was a really hard play to cover. The one that bothered me more was the zone read. They ran right behind it. Mm-hmm. And I know Nick said he hasn't run that, and even Tony Romo has said, we've all seen Patrick Mahomes run. Are you kidding me? I mean, last year in the Super Bowl with a bad ankle, he ran past Javon Hargrave to get him into field goal range to win. And he did the same thing to us later in the game, and he did it against Cincinnati. He did it against Jacksonville. He did it on one foot because he had the high ankle sprain. So he led them in rushing. The leading rusher for the Kansas City
66
Chiefs,
yards.
Yep. Was not Pacheco. It was him. So you know that he's So those are but there are elements to their offense that's really hard to defend. And I think looking back on it, I'd like to see the Niners incorporate more combination routes to pop Deebo Samuel open, not just try to run linear routes against Trent McDuffie where he just cannot uncover. What Kansas City does, like the corn dog play that they ran to Tony and Sky Moore in last year's Super Bowl. That's ultimately what beat us, was that in and out action by McCole Hardman, and it's hard to cover that. Charvarius Ward, they didn't throw at Charvarius Ward the whole day. But when they needed that touchdown, they ran a sprint right option that way, and it's an easy pitch. And then Kelsey just runs a little interference. So the bottom line is they're three outstanding coaches, and Matt Nagy's there as well. But you got Andy Reid, Steve Spagnuolo, and Dave Tobe. I mean, these are veteran guys that they're all in their 60s. They've been around forever. You knew going into the game, their personnel is fabulous, obviously, on both sides of the ball, and the scheme would pop. So that one play's frustrating. But that was, to me, a really hard play to cover. They also did some things earlier in the game. They had a short yardage situation where the Niners, and they typically run a wide 9 front, the Niners, but they pinched in. They had Bosa, Hargrave, Armstead, and the other end, Chase Young, all in the A and B gap. They had nowhere to go. And so at Kansas City was forced to burn a timeout. They seemed unprepared. I thought they'd run one of their patented jet sweeps off of it or a pitch and get wide because they loaded up in the A and B gap. So that's one play. That's a hard play to cover when he's giving you a two-way go there, with him rolling out to keep it, or if you step up and get in his face, he's going to get it out to Kelsey somehow. So what do you do in that play? But there were a lot of plays the Niners won on defense where Kansas City wasn't ready, and in the ultimate analysis, they made the big plays at the end, and it's a hell of a tough loss, Andrew. I mean, going back to the Super Bowl 54 loss, just brutal. You had them down, 10 points with 7:13 to play, the championship game in L.A., not able to convert a 2nd and 1 or a 3rd and 2, drop a pick, and last year in Philly, the quarterback gets his elbow ripped off, and then this one, he gets your heart ripped out. So I've been with the Niners 5 years now. We've lost 2 Super Bowls and 2 NFC championship games. So It's hard. And it's really, it's easy to go back and look at moments and plays, and Trent could see it from the sideline. But when you're in the middle of it, they got him outflanked on that play.
And, yeah, Mahomes is also like
Mahomes.
He's the ultimate deodorant. If the play stinks, he'll make it smell better.
That's a John Madden quote, I think. Winning is the ultimate deodorant.
Exactly. And he is the ultimate quarterback to erase all negative things. And he won again. And now it is vacation time. I hope you ski safely. You enjoy some time by the fire with your feet up, pour a cocktail, and take your mind off this stuff. We appreciate
I'm going to take about a week and a half off before I come back to work. And by then, we still haven't lost the Super Bowl. So it's one of those you never get over.
Oh,
but,
hey.
At some point, the hard part is it's a beautiful day in the Bay Area. We'd be having a parade in downtown San Francisco right now.
Hey, as a Browns fan, I'm still replaying the opening drive of the third quarter in which they're in plus territory, and it's a field goal game. They're going in, but they didn't. So
it happens. That's why we love sports, right?
It's also why we hate sports. Yes. Greg Papa, you're the best, man. Talk to you soon.
My friend. Thank you, Andrew.
Greg Papa, the voice of the San Francisco 49ers.
Catch the Rich Eisen Show every single day on the Roku channel, 12 to 3 Eastern, for free.